Welcome back. So the African National Congress's National Executive Committee has reaffirmed its commitment to the National Government of Unity. Despite continued challenges, Party President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered the closing address earlier today, touching on a number of issues, including the party's frosty relations with one of its tripartite alliance partners, that of course being the South African Communist Party, as well as the looming United States tariff hike. Now, to unpack Ramaphosa's address, I am joined by Professor Ntsikelelo from the Nelson Mandela University. Prof, good evening to you. Thank you so much for making time to chat to us. A busy 4 days for the ANC's NEC as they discussed a range of issues, many of them economic, some of them, of course, around some of their political positioning. The recommitment, though, to the government of national unity expected, but, of course, without challenges. One can only imagine what those discussions inside the room, though, would have sounded like as they continued to talk about their strategy in the continuation of GNU, right?
Of course. I think there were a number of issues that were on the agenda. But what stood out for me is the fact that, the ANC appreciates the centrality of the relationship between the government of South Africa and the government of the US. So I think it will try to send another delegation there to possibly twist the administration of Donald Trump. I think on that score, they are fighting a losing battle because the tariffs are not limited to our context. Trump has used the blanket approach. For instance, I can't remember when it was, I think it was last week, the EU has given in to the demands of the government of the US. They've signed off an arrangement of 15%. So if the EU can give in to the US, who are we to think that we can twist them? I think we are just fooling ourselves. I'm sorry to use a strong word because we are fighting a losing battle. There have been many countries, even Canada, they are still crossing swords with the government of the US. There are many countries that are on the back foot that have been left with their broken hearts.
Yeah, but when you talk about the US, though, hard to ignore that for the African National Congress, a hot potato issue, when you consider the fact that just recently there was a discussion in the US around the US wanting to ban some members of the African National Congress. And if there is opportunity for the party, not just the party in the state, to engage with the US, what do you say to that?
Well, I think the background to the story is the fact that there have been delegations from here, like AfriForum and so on. So I think I get the sense that they are the ones who might hear that Trump or his administration should not use the blanket approach by imposing sanctions on the country, because that will hurt, ordinary people or will hurt business. So they must target senior members of the ANC. So I think that was the rationale behind framing this legislation to target only senior members of the ANC. But I don't think that the ANC, in all their efforts, they are going to make the government of the US to give in to their demands. I think they've made up their minds.
Yeah, I did ask you earlier, and I think you might have misheard me, and I was talking about the ANC president's commitment in that speech at the end of this NEC meeting, reaffirming the ANC's position inside the government of national unity. Now, that being particularly important when you consider that 2026 is the local government elections, that in and of itself may or may not send a message to the electorate. Do you think that that is a moot point?
I'm trying to understand your question, and the lady.
So the president speaking about the ANC's recommitment to the government of national unity, to GNU, right? Understanding the importance of GNU, and I wonder if that being an interesting point to raise when we are just getting closer and closer to 2026, when you'd expect that some parties would want to start speaking quite individually in order to garner some of that electorate.
I'm not taken aback by that, because my view is that the GNU is not a brainchild of the ANC, nor is it a brainchild of the DA. I think it's a brainchild of the market forces. That's why, for instance, when the ANC struck a deal with the DA, the market forces responded positively. and we've seen the performance of the rand doing well. But the problem has been a lack of trickling down effect. These positive things that have happened because of the creation of this political arrangement between the ANC and the DA and other coalition partners, they have not been felt by the poorest of the poor on the ground. So there might be differences here and there, but I don't think that the DA and the ANC in the main will go separate ways. I think every now and then they're going to differ, but all the time I think they are going to smoke the peace pipe and let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, and then enter the issue of the South African Communist Party. What a fiery, a bunch of statements that we got from the General Secretary of the SACP this weekend. He said, the ANC got arrogant with power. Those were the words of Solima Baila over the weekend. And then, of course, President of the ANC today saying, we're not happy with the SACP saying they're going to go at it alone in 2026. This will weaken the alliance. Do you agree that the SACP going at it alone will weaken the alliance? And what can the ANC do to soften that relationship?
Let me open a can of worms.
Sure.
Even if the ANC can join forces with the SACP, I don't think that it stands a good chance to do well in the upcoming local government elections because it doesn't have a good track record of getting the job done at local government level. Now, it will be worse without the Communist Party. But at the same time, I also think that the Communist Party must not assume that because the majority of people of this country are part of the working class, therefore they are on standby to vote for the Communist Party. The problem with the working class of this country, it doesn't have class consciousness. And the Communist Party is also at fault because of that, because it is the one as the vanguard that is supposed to instill that particular class consciousness. That's the first point. The second point is that you don't win elections by having good ideas. Yes, the tools of analysis which are employed by the Communist Party to diagnose and to prognose the social order, they are on point. But at the same time, you also need money to win the election. So I don't know who's going to fund them in the build up to the local government election. But also some of the municipalities which are falling apart, the deployees of the ANC are also members of the Communist Party. Therefore, the Communist Party cannot be holy and take a swipe at the ANC themselves. They've been part of the mess which has been created by the ANC at local government level of failing to get the job done and improve the lives of the people for the better.
But can the relationship between the SACP and the ANC be reignited? Perhaps that's the word.
You know what? My view is that the ANC is not a socialist party, nor is it a capitalist party. It's a broad church. So the Communist Party is supposed to contest the space. One of the best decisions that the Communist Party has ever made was to swell the ranks of the ANC. That's why I think during the time of Zuma, the Communist Party had too much grip. That's why, for instance, GNU arguably was done away with, and they introduced the New Growth Path in 2010. That was because of the influence of the communists. So I think they need to do that and fight on the inside as opposed to fighting on the outside. What happened to the framing of this alliance as a living organism? What happened to that? So I think, it's really an idea that is born out of the broken hearts of some members of the Communist Party who were not deployed when the GNU was formed. Because remember, in the beginning, they were only given one seat. Now they've got 2 seats. I think that is the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, I need to move on to other issues that were raised by the NEC, and certainly, we heard from the president of the ANC at the back of that meeting. When we start talking about, the economy, for instance, the president is saying, quoted as saying, as we work to grow the economy, we will ensure that we promote employment and economic inclusion. The president is saying that, the ANC, we also characterize the state of our economy as being in a state of emergency that requires drastic action, our focus on an inclusive and resilient economy. I raise these points because I wonder if the South Africans listen to this and internalize it, believe that there will be this sort of energy that comes on the back of these comments by the ANC. He goes back, I quote the president of the ANC again. At the same time, we must invest the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area in diversifying our export markets. Big economic promises, necessary economic promises, one would easily argue. The question is, does the ANC have the capacity to, I suppose, back up some of the promises that they make to their voters and to the electorate?
Our economy has not been growing the way it should have. It's common knowledge that we have 3 security threats which are posing a danger to the country, namely inequality, poverty, and unemployment. And in the main, those social phenomena, they affect young people. And remember, young people of late have been the majority of eligible voters. And normally it's either they don't show up at the polls, or if they do show up, they don't vote for the ANC because they don't vote in relation to liberation struggle credentials. So the ANC is going to be held for its failure to get the job done on matters of the economy. I don't think that they will be able to honor the commitment that they are making at the moment to turn the tide in terms of promoting development for the majority, in particular young. Yes, I do understand that there are policy initiatives of anti-poverty programs to reach out to young people. But I think timing is really against them. I think time is against them.
Yeah. Well, we're going to leave it there, Prof. Thank you so much for speaking to us as we reflect on the outcomes of that ANC NEC meeting. Always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you for availing yourself. Professor Ntsikelelo, Breakfast political analyst there, speaking to us. Well